Croatia, home to 4.5 million people, situated in southern Europe, its famous Dalmatian coast bordering the Adriatic Sea. This beautiful country with its rugged mountain terrain has developed an ambitious project aimed at economic regeneration. The Croatian government has contracted several companies to construct a new 300-kilometre motorway network between 1998 and 2004. This video will focus on the 143 kilometres that make up the Bechtel-Enka section, a section containing 5 tunnels, 19 viaducts and 25 bridges. Part of the billion-dollar Croatian motorway project. This is the story of how it happened. Croatia's new motorway network will give access from Zagreb in the north all the way down to Split and Dubrovnik in the south. Bechtel was contracted to build several sections of motorway in partnership with Enka. A 13.5-kilometre stretch running from Zagreb to the Slovenian border opened 6 months ahead of schedule, and with this completed, the focus turned to the much more challenging southern section. Work began in the year 2000 with a process of continual surveying and land clearance. This project will mean building a road across ravines and deep valleys as well as alongside and sometimes straight through mountains. This is civil engineering on a massive scale. The first stage of land clearance is precision blasting of the limestone rock. The proposed route of the motorway can now be bulldozed of trees and rocks, along with levelling off the land and stabilising the banks and slopes that have been created. Slope protection is very important in Croatia, as much of the rock that makes up the country is unstable and therefore requires the use of various modern techniques. These include hanging of metal netting to catch small falling rocks, and the insertion of long metal pins to hold back large boulders. Early in the project, engineers found an unusual problem along the motorway route: over 80 large underground caverns.
When you first come across a cavern, probably all you see is a hole about that big in the ground. What we have to do is to see how big the cavern is underneath that hole, and we can do that in 2 ways. The first way is to send a caver down, and he can map that for us. The second way, if we can't get somebody in there, is to drill holes around it to see the extent and the depth of the cavern. Once we've done that, we can then design a structure to bridge that, and that's usually a concrete structure. The biggest challenge, though, is actually mapping the cavern, designing the structure and building it so that we don't delay the operations that are coming behind.
Bechtel-Enka has a policy of hiring as many local people as possible. Of the over 3,000 people we have on board at the moment, over 90% are local hires. The HR manager's role is to service all 3,000, whether they be tertiary educated or primary school educated. With workers from all across the country and abroad, we need to supply accommodation. We currently have 4 camps ranging in size from 150 to 750 beds. There's a rec centre in each of them, as well as sporting facilities. The standard and services that we supply are second to none in the country. The State Employment Agency has been of great benefit to us, especially in finding the higher skilled craftspeople for the project, which have needed to come from across the entire country.
One of the things we did to help the government in this area was they would go out and deal with the public, get agreement to purchasing the land, but then there's a big process that they have to go through to document it, pay for it, and so on. Well, that we didn't want to wait for this, and what we did is we get our PR group to go out and discuss with all the landowners and discuss the value of the motorway and what they're asking them if we could, they know what they're going to get. Can we get access to the land? And we probably we're successful in probably 95% of the time getting these people. They signed up, says, yeah, you guys can go start the work in our land, even though we haven't got a signed agreement.
Back on site, major structures are now taking shape and include the initial concrete piers which will ultimately support the huge bridges and viaducts which must be built. Steel reinforcements are woven in to add extra strength before the liquid concrete is poured. Meanwhile, all along the motorway, the casting and installation of viaduct beams is about to take place. Although the vertical piers can be cast from liquid concrete where they stand, the beams, which run lengthways from pier to pier, cannot. At 160 tons, they're simply too heavy. Therefore, beams are either cast off-site at a special facility and brought to the viaduct by rail or road, or, as here, they're cast up to half a mile down the motorway at a purpose-built site. Each beam is unique to its viaduct. It won't fit anywhere else, and starts life as a steel skeleton, which is then encased in liquid concrete and allowed to set for several weeks. The finished beams are then carefully lifted on giant yellow transporters and slowly moved at 5 miles an hour down to the viaduct on large low loaders, where they're then inched onto this massive yellow beam launcher. This, in turn, inches them slowly down the viaduct. Manoeuvring a 160-ton beam to its final resting place is both time-consuming and complex. All workers are highly trained and must work as a skilled team if this process is going to be successful. These beams are so heavy that 3 at most can be laid in one day. Some of these viaducts contain 80 or more beams. The process of beam launching is best seen speeded up from above and below. In all, there are over 7 kilometres of viaduct on this motorway project, all of it requiring specialised beam construction.
Safety is a personal thing that they have to understand, they have to support. They have to recognize that it's something that they need to do. Then they need to make sure their supervision doesn't get them into unsafe situations. You think you go out on the alignment out here and you're driving on this highway and you stop and you get out and somebody says you got to put a hard hat. What's the sky going to fall? I mean, they don't. Why do I need a hard hat? Well, there are certain places you do, but others you don't need it. But it's the idea that think safe. You put that hard hat on, you put the vest on, you put the glasses on. That's the first step to safety for the day.
Both Bechtel and Enker take safety very seriously and have instigated a training programme for all their contractors. This includes a weekly talk where workers are given specific advice on a variety of safety subjects, including hard hats, high visibility vests, and the correct attachment of safety harnesses. Safety's all the more important in Croatia due to the large number of unexploded landmines that are still in the country.
Environmental consideration in the southern part is very important to us, especially the place where we are building our motorway in the Gachka Valley is the most environmentally sensitive part of Croatia. Therefore, before we start the construction of that part, we produce and implemented our environmental protection plan.
For the first time in Europe, large animal overpasses have been constructed. These cost around $4 million each and are designed to allow wild animals a wide access to cross from one side of the motorway to the other. This overpass is now complete. Also designed for environmental protection are roadside lagoons. They are designed to catch rainwater from the motorway and separate off the dirt and sediment which could contaminate local rivers. The final stage of motorway construction is the laying of the road itself. To create a long-lasting and high-quality motorway, the road surface has to be applied in several layers, one at a time. The first layer is heavy rock, which is broken down and compacted by rollers. A coarse cement and gravel mix is now applied. and when water is added, sets hard. Finally, 3 layers of asphalt are poured onto the base and each one is rolled flat. Once this is completed, the motorway is ready for painting, and the finishing works such as fencing and barriers are undertaken. And the final result is this, a finished motorway. This is the first open stretch of the 300-kilometre Croatian motorway project. The long-held dream of many Croatians to travel from Zagreb in the north to Split, Dubrovnik and the rest of the Dalmatian coast in under 3 hours is now becoming a reality.
There exists an Adriatic-Ionian initiative which also incorporates the construction of a motorway from the Italian border via Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and further through Montenegro to Greece. This would increase the possibilities of connecting with the Middle East. It is well known that the question of regional development is solved through the areas where there exists motorway corridors. Therefore, the whole process that I have mentioned connects us and the region with Western Europe through the shortest and fastest transportation corridor.
All governments face a lack of funds, and at the same time, they have a need to improve their infrastructure because that's what drives their economies. And the approach that we've brought to Croatia was one that said the most cost-effective way to do this is to do it yourself, but with somebody like us who can help you manage the process and accomplish far more than you've been able to accomplish traditionally. And frankly, that struck a chord with Croatia, and they were willing to give it a try, and I think the results speak for themselves. Clearly, this is a project we were excited about, and we've been able to work with the government to accomplish a very aggressive schedule, and in fact beat the schedule that we thought was aggressive at the beginning. I think we do that because we've been there, we've done this over and over again. This is what we do.